All right, man. We got a special treat today. Ed Cholo Trucker here for Wrestling Rehab. You know, I'm out here on the hotel doing the trucker thing, living the trucker life, man. But man, we got something special for you guys today. Shout outs to all the junkies out there. I got somebody who is just an encyclopedia of wrestling. And I just can't wait to just start picking at this man's brain. One interview is not going to be enough, but let's see how much we could just squeeze out of him, man. I'm talking about one, Mr. Jesse Hernandez.
How are you, Ed? How are you?
I'm good, brother. I'm good. First of all, let me just go ahead and say thank you so much for agreeing to come on Wrestling Rehab. It is a pleasure. It is an honor to have you on here. And I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, so I'll stop praising too much. But I honestly, I feel like a little kid right now, just like just thinking back of all the days. You know, Jesse, I welcome to Wrestling Rehab. I remember watching wrestling for as long as I've been alive. When people ask me, hey, when did you start watching wrestling? I don't have an answer for them because I tell them for as long as I can remember I was alive, I was watching wrestling. There was no, oh, that's my first wrestling match that I've ever seen. And ever since then, I was hooked to wrestling. I hear stories like that, and that's cool. But I just, to be honest, since I can remember being alive, I was watching wrestling. I don't know how that goes. I can't tell anybody what my first match was. I don't know. Just my first memory, I don't know, maybe 3 years old, somewhere around there. I was watching wrestling. So I can't give anybody an answer of like, oh, what was my first wrestling match? But Jesse, you, my man, let's get a little bit of backstory just with you. Where did you grow up? What was your childhood like? And was wrestling in your childhood?
You know, I'm from Mexico, and me and my mother came across, I would say, 1961.
¿De qué parte?
Uh,
Jesse? Sorry, I didn't
uh,
want.
I was born in Ciudad Obregón, Sonora, Mexico, and we moved to Salinas up north.
Mhm.
And my stepfather, he was a wrestling fan. You know, he watched wrestling on TV, and then I remember later on, he used to go to the matches in Watsonville. Him and my mother,
Mhm.
and then one day I went with him, and I remember that night, man. I remember the guys that wrestled that night. I mean, it was a small auditorium out in Watsonville. Actually, later on, I read that in that building, instead of having seats, they had benches because there's a lot of Filipinos there, and they got small butts. And that way they could get more people in the building. But some of the wrestlers that were there were Freddie Blassie, Don Carson, the fabulous Kangaroos, two of the Torres brothers. There were three of them. I think it was Enrique and Ramon. They were there. Those are the names that I remember very well. The rest I don't remember much about. But nonetheless, that was the first time and only time that they took me to the matches out in Watsonville. And then we moved to San Bernardino in '63, and it was because the family bought a movie theater over here in San Bernardino called El Azteca. And so, I was probably 13 years old at the time, and we had to work the theater. I did the cleanup, me and my brother, and worked the concession, did everything there. My brother eventually learned to run the what do you call it, the God damn, I forgot. My mind went blank.
So okay,
The projectors.
oh, the projectors. Okay, yeah.
The movie projectors and stuff like that. But anyway, and my parents will sometimes on Saturdays leave us there by ourselves. They went to the damn matches out here in San Bernardino. And so every Saturday they were going to the matches, and we worked. And then there was one summer that one of my brother's friends was going on vacation. He parked the cars there, or he got paid $5 to watch the parking lot, and charge for parking. And so that guy he was going on vacation, and he asked my brother if he could work a couple of Saturdays for him at the parking lot there at the wrestling shows. And so he asked my stepfather, and he said, "All right, I'll let you go, but you guys switch it off. You go one Saturday, and then Jesse goes the next." And so we switched stuff for those 2 weeks, and somehow he allowed us to keep going. The old man, and so we did that for a while. And once I turned about 17, I was more interested in girls than wrestling. Probably by 16 and a half or 17, So I stopped going to the matches. But I actually, the guy that trained me was the Great Goliath. And not knowing that she was going to wind up with him, she actually used to go to the movie theater. And I'm the one that introduced her to wrestling as a youngster, to Goliath, my trainer, Goliath's wife. And she stayed on, I kind of got away from the wrestling for a while until I got married. And then there was, no more partying, no more going to the dances or anything like that. So then I started going to the matches again. And that's where I met guys like Hector Guerrero, who became a good friend of mine. I was a fan, and he was just a young wrestler at the time. And he and I used to talk a lot in the lobby. And this one guy, Juan Hernandez, walked by and stopped and said, "Hey, man, do you know of a wrestling school anywhere? I'd like to start training." And so Hector said, "Well, no, the only school I know is the one my father runs in El Paso or Juarez or somewhere out there." And so, and he says, and if I were to train you, I'd charge you a lot of money. You won't be able to afford me. something like that. I think was charging like $60 a lesson or something like that, which was a lot of money back then anyway. Right. So there's no way he was going to do that. So I'm listening to this conversation between the two. And I said, hey, and he said that he knew a little bit of the tumbling, a little bit of the wrestling, but not much. And I says, hey, if you're interested, man, give me a call. I gave him my number. Give me a call when you're ready to start training, and we'll go down to the YMCA and train. And with what little you know, whatever you know, we'll work on that and go from there. And so it took him about a month, and he called me, and we started going to the YMCA 2-3 times a week, actually. And while we were there, I used to run into Goliath because he lived in where was it, in Colton. Okay. And so I will ask, hey, is there any way that you can come and check us out, see how we're doing at the YMCA? He kept saying, yeah, one of these days. And it never happened. Mm-hmm. But then later on, a friend of mine started working at the San Bernardino Arena, selling tickets at 1:00 in the afternoon, opening up the box office at that hour, to sell tickets throughout the day. So he said, hey, you guys want to get in the ring, and work out? Go ahead. So we did that. But I was always afraid that he was going to get in trouble. And I says, you know what, I'll ask Jeff Walton, who was a San Bernardino promoter for Mike Lavelle. And I said, and get his permission. So I talked to him, and, he said, well, let me think about it. So I'll let you know next week, he says. And so by next week, I got a letter notarized that, that he or nobody else will be in any trouble if we got hurt or whatever. We were, responsible for ourselves and won't blame anybody else. So he saw that and he said, hey, you guys are serious. And I said, yeah, we're very serious about wanting to train. And so then he allowed us, but he said, just be out before 4:00. I said, all right. So we train but we still didn't have no professional help whatsoever. Mm. And then something happened where Goliath really wasn't working anymore as a wrestler. I mean, he had done something and kind of got blackballed from the promotion. Okay. So he just needed to make a few bucks with us or whatever. So he came down to the school and watched us train one day. And he says, do a match. And we did a small little match. And then he's shaking his head back and forth, And
Yeah.
so, so
I
anyway,
understand. So let me ask.
after a few minutes, he comes to the ring and says, "You guys hit like little old ladies," and he got one and hit him top of his shoulders, and he went down and did the same thing to me. If I'm going to train you guys, I'm going to charge you $15 each.
Yeah. So Jesse,
Fair enough.
let me ask you that, Jesse. Let me ask you,
Yeah.
because you were saying that you guys would go and train, but nobody was training you guys.
Nobody was training us. We just trained by ourselves. We worked out. We did the tumbling. At the YMCA, there were guys that were, because they had a mat room. There was no ring. It was just a mat room. So some guys would walk in and see what we were doing, and then they want to get in there. They thought they could take us out, but somehow or another, we always came out ahead. Some of these guys wanted to try us out. We did fine.
All right.
And but we weren't getting the professional help that we needed. At one point at the arena, some guy showed up. He said that he was a wrestler, and I had never seen him. He said he wore a mask, but the guy from the caretaker to the building said, "No, it's true. He's wrestled, but he wasn't that good. He tried teaching us, but I mean, later on I found out that he was not as good as he thought he was. Nonetheless, Goliath started training us, man, and he did a hell of a job with us. And he had no intention of ever opening up a wrestling school, but it just grew. He trained us, and then all of a sudden, at the Olympic Auditorium, they were calling me, "Hey, where's a wrestling school?" And they started giving them my number. See, because once we started training once we got the okay from Jeff Walton, then we, in return, helped out the guy that became my tag team partner, Juan. He ushered people into the building, and I started working the box office, in the afternoons, and just to help out, kind of out of appreciation, anyway. And
now, this was the days of the territories, right?
yeah, this is
territories.
towards the end of the territories, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I mean, it was just an incredible experience, doing that, and then every time I got sent to the dressing room to send a message to either the matchmaker or whatever, everybody will quiet down and say, "Kayfabe, kayfabe." Kayfabe. Meaning there's a mark in the room.
So that saying's been around since back then, kayfabe?
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Okay. And you know what? And even though, even after we had trained with Goliath for quite some time, they still will not give us our first match. Nobody would. I mean, seriously, this business was very hard to get into. Right now, any time, Tom, Dick, or Harry can get into this business. All they have to do is just know the promoter, and they'll put anybody in the ring nowadays. Unfortunately, that's what's bad about this business nowadays. Back then, it was hard, very hard to get into, and
very protected.
Yeah, very, very well protected.
Yeah,
man, this business was, man.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask you. It seemed like the wrestlers and everything were a little bit more accessible, but no, you're saying it wasn't. So today is a little bit different, because today, like a lot of the business, especially the big times, you're talking about, they're like superstar. I'm sorry, they're like movie star status. It's like you can't really get close to them.
But the young guys, they don't have the respect, towards this business that they should have. You get a young kid that just starts wrestling, including some of my idiot students that I've had, they, how can I say this? The thing is, they don't have respect for themselves. They sell themselves cheap. They it's not good. It's not good what I see. I mean, back then, bro, when we were getting into this business, and I mean, like I said, this promotion won't even give us our first match. Goliath, there was a promoter in Tijuana that wanted to use Goliath, and he said, "The only way that I will work for you," he said, "if you put my boys on the card, and I'll work for you. And if they mess up, you never have to use them again. If they do well, use them whenever you can." And so then that was the deal with Goliath and the promoter. Yeah,
now,
the guy's name was.
Now, when did you wrestle your last match? Because I don't to the best of my knowledge,
You know,
I do remember you as a referee though.
I
When
ref- uh-huh.
when did that transition happen, and why
I,
did it happen?
I stopped wrestling. I will say perhaps in the late '90s, maybe, or no, in the late '90s.
Yeah, you were putting them on then.
As a wrestler, I've been promoting since I've been involved as a booker and promoter, when, or however you want to put it, all the way from 1984, I believe it was. And I started, my first match was 1981. And I wrestled I refereed, wrestled. As a matter of fact, I started as a wrestler, as a masked wrestler, those frailes, or the friars. And it was the matchmaker for the LaBelle promotion that one day asked me to, he wanted me to referee. And of course, I'm a wrestler. I don't want to referee, And so I started to say no. And he says, listen, if you're not wrestling, you'll be refereeing. If you're not refereeing, you're wrestling. You're always going to be busy. And so then, and I said, all right. So I agreed, because they wanted to get rid of one of the referees that they had at the time, and they wanted to replace him with somebody else, and they chose me, even though I had never refereed. But I guess if you know how to wrestle, you should know how to referee. I mean, you're right there in that ring with him, And then plus Red Shoes Dugan, who was one of the greatest referees ever.
Yeah,
I used to watch him referee all the time, and man, it was just do what he does or try to. But he and I had a deal. I couldn't fly higher than he could. He was he was one of those guys that would leap over the wrestlers and go 1, 2, 3.
He's at the Olympic auditorium.
Yeah. He was a very famous referee. He said, "You got to promise me not to fly higher than me." That's a deal.
But anyway, a lot of these referees, I mean, they're in there. They're part of the show, man. A lot of these referees take bumps. A lot of these referees are part of the storyline as well. So, I don't think just anybody can go in there and just be a referee. You got to be, you're part of the show. The eyes are on you as well.
Yeah. But you don't want to take it away from the match. So a good referee, kind of stays up, does his job. But that's the stars are the wrestlers. It's always good to know a good referee. You don't want to be there's referees that will, wear a mask. They want to be, they want, they think they're characters.
The referee that always comes to my mind is Earl Hebner.
Earl Hebner. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he always comes to mind because his aggression in his face. And I always think SummerSlam 1991, the match between Mr. Perfect and Bret the Hitman Hart, where Bret Hart won the Intercontinental Championship. I always remember Bret Hart kicking out of the Perfect Plex and Mr. Perfect grabbing Earl Hebner in the face, blaming him, and Earl Hebner just saying, like, it was this close, and then he moves Perfect's hand. Like, it was just, they sold it so great, and till this day, it's the first memory that burns into my mind, man.
Earl and Dave, both brothers, great referees, great people, man, they were.
How did you get into movie roles? How did you get into the acting? I saw you on Body Slam. But how did you get into some of these movie roles?
Sometimes you got to make things happen for yourself. On Body Slam, for example, I knew that they were going to go check out the building at the San Bernardino Arena, because the guy that the old man that was the caretaker to the building said, "Hey, Jess, this coming Monday they're going to come out and check out the building, And there was one entrance to go in, and that's the side door there, There's no other way to go into that building. So I set up my information and pictures and everything right there where they will see it.
Okay.
And I said, Marvin, when they come in, make sure that they open up this envelope, brother. And that's how I got the part. They called me. They called me, I saw your stuff here, we like you to work. And that's how I got in on that one anyway.
Okay.
And then I've been very fortunate, that just being at the right place at the right time, mostly. I never liked to do the cattle calls. I never cared to do that. Everything I've gotten is because somebody told me, hey, you need to go and here's the address. They're looking for a referee or they're looking for a wrestler. And then run the wrestling movie, for example. I was in charge of hiring local talent for them. And it was Terry Funk that had suggested Mando Guerrero help him, to coordinate everything.
Okay.
But they didn't know how to get a hold of him because Terry Funk couldn't do it. And so they somehow got a hold of me, and they said, "Hey, we're looking for Mando Guerrero." But then I gotta see what I can get out of it. So I said, "Sure, tell me where where I'll get a hold of him and take him out there, and so you guys can meet him and you can discuss details or whatever." So I got Mando in there. I helped Mando get in to kind of run things, all the everything that needed to be done, stunts and stuff like that for the matches. And it guaranteed me a role where, I was on every, anything that they were doing with wrestling, I was part of it.
Nice.
And then they asked me if I could hire other people as well. I brought in another referee and some local talent as well.
Yeah. You know how you said, like, you're in the right place at the right time and stuff like that. I always tell people, listen, man, luck is when opportunity meets preparation. If you're not prepared, then, opportunity could come your way, but you're not prepared for it. So, there you go. So, kudos on you, Jesse, for being prepared for whenever any of these opportunities came to you. And I think a lot of people can learn from that, because it's like, hey, man, there's opportunities, but if you're not prepared, then you're not prepared. You just get complain about, oh man, all I need is an opportunity. You're not prepared for an opportunity.
And also the important thing is when you deal with people like that, you deliver what they want.
Exactly.
You deliver what they want.
Yes.
I might have my worst enemy, and if they ask for somebody for a part, and maybe somebody that I dislike, I might still put him in there. I will still pass out his information so that they can get a hold of him and get that part that they need.
Yeah, you do what's good for business. I keep hearing that. Yeah, you do what's good for business.
Yeah, I had a partner one time, and Gene LaBelle asked him, "Hey, do you have anybody at the school, or somebody that will play a good German character, or I don't know if it was German or Russian, whatever it was." And since he didn't fit the part, he didn't give him no details about anybody. He just let it go. And yet we had somebody that could have played it, but because he couldn't do it, he didn't share it.
Jesse, what was your biggest match? In your opinion, what was your biggest match? And then tell me, what was your favorite match that you had?
Well, quite honestly, if I had my first match on tape, I would pay $1,000 for it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's not out there, I don't know if anybody that might have filmed it, but that was one hell of a match. Our first match, we were hungry. Me and my partner trained for 2 years, and that match was incredible, man. I mean, at the end of the match, well, when we got there, first of all, we were going into our first match, and Rey Mysterio Sr. tells us, me and my partner, we've been promoting you guys, man, on radio and stuff, saying that you're a hot team from Japan. I couldn't believe it, man. What the hell is our first match?
Thanks, Ray.
and so I said, we can't even pretend, we got to really bust ass here, man. I told my partner. And we went in there. We had a tremendously great match. The commissioners that were in charge of that the event that night, they couldn't even believe that was our first match. Honestly, and they put us in the third match. Out of 5 matches, they put us in the center of the card. And there was guys on the first match asking for our autographs. And they've been wrestling for I don't know how long.
Yeah.
That was 2 years in the making, though.
And man, we after that match, we rushed back to San Bernardino because it was an afternoon event in Tijuana that we worked on. So we got back to San Bernardino as they were shutting down the arena for that night, and we told I told the promoter Jeff. I said, Jeff, we've had our first match already, man, in Tijuana. He said, I'll hear about it. He said, I'll hear about it. He didn't want to think, he didn't want to believe anything we said, But that was on Sunday. By Monday, he calls me up. I need you in Fresno on Thursday and San Bernardino on Sunday.
So I take it he did hear about it.
After we've had our first match, we were, at least right away they put me to work as a wrestler. And so my second match was in Fresno, and then a week after 2 weeks later, we went back to Tijuana after our first match. We went back and they put us over on our match against the same two guys, Rey Mysterio and Pequeño Apollo, who we had wrestled on our first match. So that was,
And what do you think was your biggest match?
Biggest match, I've had many. I refereed a lot of important wrestlers. I have wrestled. I think one match that probably like Piper versus Hogan, was incredible.
That was that match. Okay, that rivalry right there was so great. I don't think people truly remember how much people hated Piper. Like they really hated him at that time. Later on, he became a face, but at that time, people really hated him, and it was just like, here comes Hogan, this all-American good old boy. Say your prayers, take your vitamins, and stuff like that. So that rivalry was great.
What's sad about the whole thing, man, is that he was a heel, but after their big match, everybody went to celebrate with Hogan, and they had him up, and Piper, lonely, and in the dressing room, and go to a hotel, and being the heel that he was, he didn't get any. How can I say? He couldn't celebrate, or wasn't able to celebrate like everybody else, including Vince, because he made so much money in wrestling.
Well, back then they had to, right? They had to stay that way.
They had to stay that way, man. Nowadays, brother, the baby face and the heels go together in a bar to celebrate.
You know what? Okay. We're definitely gonna get to that, Jesse. I definitely want to get to that. But let's hold off on that because I got a lot of questions on that. So, throughout, I remember the whole B. John Studs and, Hogan's whole career basically coming up in the WWF. When the WWF came to be, did you know that it was going to take over wrestling? Did you know that the territories were kind of a thing of the past, and now this is going to be the new way wrestling is going to become?
Brother, if I had known that, I would have saved out of so many boxes of programs that they gave me to put out at the different arenas in San Diego and LA and everything. If I would have known that, I would have saved at least one box and had the guys autograph the damn thing, and I could have been making a lot of money right now with that, with those programs. Unfortunately, I only got one. No, I had no idea that they were going to become what.
Yeah, man. And then WrestleMania comes, and then they start bringing these pay-per-views with the Royal Rumbles, the SummerSlam, the Survivor Series. Again, today is much different, and we're definitely going to touch on that. We're not going to. I definitely want to touch on all of that. But when you being a referee, okay, I don't know how much you really want to say, but how much do you, as a referee, know what's going to go on in there?
Well, you just never know, when they can go with one plan and come back out with a different one, They got to follow the rhythm. They got to follow, in other words, wrestling's a little bit unpredictable, it just, they do what makes sense, what makes sense for the audience, what's going to make money. I mean, they go with the hope that, hey, we put this guy over, by God, it's going to be profitable. And so, they nowadays, if we were talking 20 years ago, I wouldn't be telling you this,
Right.
But yeah, it's predictable. So they got to know what's going on.
Does the crowd have a big say in that?
I think
that's what I wanted. That's what I'm at. Okay, so how do they decide? How do they decide? Okay, I'm gonna put this guy over, as opposed to keep this guy going. Actually, now we're gonna cut it. We're gonna get this guy over on him. Right now, today we got Roman Reigns, who is like way over. And I think he's so over. I think they're having a problem trying to get somebody to, get the 1, 2, 3 on him. But going back then, how do they determine, okay, you know what? It's profitable to get this guy over on this this big cash money right there that we got going.
Yeah, like you said, nowadays it's hard because of TV and everything, so you got to go with a plan and end with a plan. Back in the day in WWE, you still had the plan, but the match, if one guy messed up or whatever, and the referee went 1, 2, 3, it doesn't matter even if the other guy was supposed to go over. You treated us as real as possible, on smaller promotions, many times I had seen where I'd be wrestling, for example, and we're supposed to do the job, and all of a sudden the referee gets a sign that says that we're going over because it makes more sense for that match for us to go over, and they'll change it on the spot. I had done it with Rocky Romero and Ricky Reyes. They were a tag team, and they had the titles years ago, and we had an event at San Bernardino High School, and they went against this couple of guys. What the hell were their names? Anyway, and the crowd was so over with the other guys, that they just loved them and gave them the sign. Hey, these guys go over.
During the match.
During the match,
Wow, that is that. You know what? That's very impressive. I'm gonna be real. That is very impressive. That during the match they said, like, you know what? We're switching this up, Holmes. You thought you're in 1, 2, 3, Charlotte. We're switching it up during the match.
And I'm sure that that WWE, I'm sure, or even a bigger promotion, even with TV and everything, I bet you at one time or another they've done it. Sometimes it's important to do so,
Yeah. Have in your career, have you ever seen referees get the wrong call and they screw up? And
oh, brother, I seen one referee. Oh, wait till you hear this story, man. This one promoter, Herb Abrams, ran UWF. Yeah. And he was running shows in Reseda, and he brought in to referee. That's one of the referees, his neighbor, some black kid, and he's refereeing Paul Orndorff and Paul Orndorff, man.
Yeah.
And
he was Mr. Wonderful.
Mr.
Right?
Wonderful.
Yeah. Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff.
Yeah. But you can't say original because Rock Riddle will get pissed, man. Rock Riddle claims he's the original Mr. Wonderful. There was heat with her. So anyway, these guys are wrestling, and one guy uses a chair on the other guy uses a chair on Paul Orndorff. Steve Williams was the guy. And the referee takes the chair away from him. And he grabs the chair, pushes the referee out of the way, and went and continued. And the referee kept taking the chair away from him. And this went on for a while. And so then eventually they take it back to after the match was over in the dressing room. Steve Williams gets a hold of the referee and says, "You son of a gun, you don't ever pull a chair, let us do our job, you're not supposed to have done that, this and that." Yeah, but you shouldn't have been using the chair. The guy was stupid. So and wasn't listening. So Steve Williams punches him in the face and he went down, and the dummy comes back up again. And he punches him again, went down. On the third time, I said, "Stay down, man." This is in the dressing room. I mean,
Is that Dr. Death or
Dr. Death?
Dr. Death? Yeah.
Steve Williams.
Oh
He
man.
hit the referee. I don't know how many times, man. The guy, stupid guy, kept getting up. If I were you, I'd stay down, bro.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey,
Yeah.
Jesse, getting real here. A lot of my heroes that I used to watch in the 80s died at an early age. A lot of them struggled later on. I always think back of that movie, The Wrestler, and when I watched that movie, I'm like, man, that seems to be, inspired. In my opinion, that seems to be inspired by a lot of true stories, man, for wrestlers in the 80s. What was it, Jesse, to the best of your knowledge, man, whatever you can share? Was it just a different time? Did guys abuse their bodies a lot? What was going on back then?
Back then, bro, if you got hurt, you couldn't take time off.
Okay.
If you happen to get hurt and you're gone for a couple of months, then the story that they're building you around ends. They can't, So you want that story to continue. So the guys get on painkillers, and then they get addicted to them, and that kind of stuff is what happened, or what was happening, and it's probably still is happening at the moment. You can't afford, if they're doing a storyline on you, you got to follow through. No matter what, you put a Band-Aid or you put up whatever wrap, you do whatever you can to stay active. Otherwise, you lose out. And that's why they get on killers. Yeah.
What stories can you give us of some of the guys way back then, like the Hammer Valentines or Andre the Giant or Big John Studd or any of these guys, man, that I used to love watching as a kid.
All right, I'll give you a quickie on John Studd.
Okay.
Big guy.
Big John Studd.
Big John Studd. As a referee with WWF at the time, he will tell me stories about how he got started and how he was he was originally trained by Killer Kowalski, but Killer was training him at the Olympic Auditorium when he was out here for I don't know how many months or so, and then when he left, he couldn't find anybody to train him at the time. He says, and so he wound up moving to Boston to be trained by Killer. He promised that when he came back to LA, he was going to be a star. And you know what? It became true. He became, when he came back to this area, he by then he was with WWE or WWF at the time, and he did come back as a star. He will show me pictures of his son. Sometimes after the matches, we'd be at the hotel or by the bar or whatever, having a drink, and he loved his family, man. He loved his son. He loved his kid.
Okay.
Great guy.
And what happened to his career? Because I don't really know too much. I remember seeing him. I remember him feuding with Hogan, and then he just kind of faded.
Well, he got sick. He got cancer.
Oh,
yeah. He got sick, and cancer is what killed him.
Oh man. Okay. Got it. Man,
But you mentioned Greg Valentine. When I was still a fan, actually before it has to be even before I even started training. It never happened while I was in training. It happened before, and I was just a stupid fan. And I was sitting ringside, and so Greg Valentine is wrestling this individual who was the champion. I think he was the America's champion. And so anyway, during the match, the referee gets knocked out, kind of bumped, and took a fall to the floor, while Greg used brass knuckles on the other guy to pin, for the pin. So when the referee went to count, it was 1, 2, and I pulled his leg. So he stops the count, looks at me, what the hell, So he goes back to count 1, 2, boom, I pulled the leg. So by the third time, the guy was on his back too long, so he just wound up taking the 3 count deal. And so this was on Sunday, I believe, in San Bernardino. By Wednesday on TV, they announced Greg Valentine, that would have been America's champion. That would have been. In other words, if he had won that match, if I hadn't pulled that guy's neck.
Wow.
But I told Greg that story. He laughed, man.
Oh, man. You know, Jesse, I don't think there's a wrestling fan that did not used to wrestle when they were kids, man. I'm no different. I used to watch it, and my brother and I, or just friends, we just wrestle and everything. And one of the cool things is that a lot of the submissions, or all the submissions, to the best of my knowledge, they all really work. Jesse, how real is it when somebody puts a submission? The sharpshooters, the figure 4 locks, all that stuff really does work. How much is any of that real when somebody's you want to make it look like it's really happening? Is there pain to some of the submissions that one puts on another?
No, if you apply them properly, you're okay. But if it becomes a shoot, what we call a shoot, where it goes, because some matches can be very real. Everybody says wrestling is fake or whatever. But you know what? If you're not getting along with your opponent, it becomes very real.
Okay.
Very real.
Okay.
If you do stupid stuff in the ring, if you don't sell properly, somebody's going to kick your butt.
Got a receipt.
Absolutely. You mess up a match, get a receipt. Absolutely. I saw one poor guy. He went against Animal and Hawk in this match, and he wasn't selling properly.
The Road Warriors, Legion of Doom.
They down like a sack of potatoes. In other words, you got to sell. You got to sell your thing. This guy wasn't selling nothing. He was just laying there in the ring, and they stomped the hell out of him. They beat the living crap out of the poor guy. I feel sorry.
What is the deal with Andre the Giant really putting hands on guys that it seems like he didn't like anybody? To the best of my knowledge, it seemed like Andre didn't really like certain people, and he really let them have it in the ring. He was Macho Man Randy Savage. He really didn't like Macho Man.
He didn't like him. There was a guy that was brought in years ago to this LA area, and he wrestled as the monster. Okay, like a Frankenstein monster with a mask, the whole 9 yards. And he was tall, especially with the thick soles on his boots, And he wrestled Andre in Fresno one time, and I guess Andre wasn't selling for him right or whatever. He was making him look like shit because the promotion was building him up, to be a tough son of a gun. And then and Andre just won't sell for him. The guy went and got a gun out of his car and he was going to shoot Andre for not selling for him.
Oh man!
They had to take the gun away from the guy, man. But believe it or not, I wrestled that same the monster character with him.
Yeah.
The gun for him. I'm there to do my job, right? So I went to give him a hip toss, and of course I knew he wasn't going to go. But I positioned myself for the hip toss, and then the guy says, "Pull a little harder." So I pulled harder, and the son of a gun took a bump on. The crowd it was silence, man. Nobody could believe that I had done that because nobody else had taken him off his feet. Wow. But yet, because he got along with me or whatever, he allowed that to happen. And I was shocked. Actually, the type of coat that he had, it was some kind of material that just ripped right off and stayed in my hand. It was weird.
So with the hip toss, you kept the shirt?
Yeah, he took them up. I ripped his damn coat up.
Hey,
it was crazy.
Jesse, how many guys really didn't get along? And was there any blows, any real life chingazos that happened backstage? And if you can, I don't know if you want to throw it out there, but can you give us any names that really threw some chingazos?
In the dressing room, you didn't see that too much in the big promotions.
Okay.
At all. First of all, unless it was WWE or even WCW, everybody shared the dressing room area. When I started, during the territory days, you go into a building and the wrestlers the good guys are in one corner of the building, and there's another dressing room far away, and there was no communication. The only communication back and forth was maybe the referee, sending some instructions or whatever. And so they couldn't fight after the match. They were separated. They could, but it has happened. I've seen it happen in smaller promotions. Where somebody gets pissed off, they don't feel that the guy sold properly for him, and they get into a confrontation. It happens.
I think the most popular one that everybody thinks of, or that I can think of, is Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. I guess they really did throw chingazos once upon a time in backstage.
Well, the chingazo was received by Vince, not Vince is the one that got hit.
You know what? I get we got to touch on that, Jesse. What do you know about the Montreal Screwjob?
Well, the thing was that